The Committee on Energy, Communications, and Technology will come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Scott,
Yes, present.
Representatives Andrews,
Here.
Witsit, Neely, here, Burns,
Here.
Churches,
Present.
Hill,
Here.
McDonald,
Present.
McFall,
Here.
Hersberg,
Here.
Wenzel, here, Outman,
Here.
Aragona,
Here.
Pagol,
Here.
Green,
Here.
Preston,
Yep.
Schmaltz.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve and adopt the minutes from our June 5th, 2024 meeting. Representative Neely makes that motion. Without objection, the minutes are approved. We will first take up House Bill 6075, which is my bill that modifies the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. We have Senator Sam Singh here today to speak on the bill. Will you please come forward, Senator Singh? And team. Thank you. Extras. We love extras. Thanks.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you very much for having us here, and members of the committee, thank you for having us come forward and speak about this bill. Madam Chair, would you like us to talk about the whole package, including this bill at the same time?
Yes, that'll be fine. Thank you.
All right, great. I'll allow my colleagues up here to introduce themselves. The package that came from the Senate that also now includes a bill from the chairwoman came from a bipartisan group of senators, Senators Outman, Kleinfeld, and myself. Both senators aren't able to be here, but their staffs are here, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Zach Sikkema, Legislative Director for Senator Outman.
Renee Wilson, Legislative Director for Senator Veronica Kleinfeld.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to go back to last year when the committee, we had the opportunity to remove the sunset for the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. If you remember, again, it was a while back, we did remove that with bipartisan support from both chambers, and I want to thank you for that. At that time, I mentioned to you that we were looking at wanting to modernize the MEEP program and that we would be coming back to you at a later point in time, and that time is now. Just to remind people, this program was started under the Snyder administration. It was a program that I think when you talk to people in your communities will say that is a very effective program. The Michigan Energy Assistance Program works with customers that have need as they're dealing with their utility bills. And what's great about the program is that it is led by nonprofit organizations on behalf of the utilities. This is not just a program where you get resources if you can't pay your bills. You actually have to go through a program with that nonprofit where they take a look at your budgeting and how you are focused on, making your ends meet. What we have found that most people who enter the MEEP program exit the MEEP program. They have about 90% of the people exit the program without having to come back. There are about 10% that have to come back, not often every year, but back and forth. So we find that to be a very effective tool that we can help people with these third-party vendors. And so let me walk through the package as a whole. I'll talk about, I think, the exciting new components that the chairwoman has added to this, and then we can answer questions. So first piece was that as we talked to the nonprofit vendors who've been working on this initiative, you heard some of them testify, I think, back in June. What they found is that there are a lot of people who don't meet the thresholds that were still in need. And so what we wanted to do was change the level of participation. And so you'll see that as being one of the changes here. Also, that the program every year runs out of money. We've created an artificial cap at $50 million, and that cap is being removed. And then there was also a conversation about how do we also meet this larger need of people that are still struggling to meet their daily needs. And so there is a change in the monthly factor that is allowed to be put onto a utility bill. But we have capped that on how much it can be raised. That was actually some of the pieces that were invited by my colleagues on the Republican side. So you can't raise it more than 25 cents, and then there's a complete cap at $2. And then as we had this conversation, you might remember under the energy laws that were signed by Governor Snyder back in 2016, there was a period of time that all utilities, whether you were a municipal or a co-op, were part of that program. And so that was from about 2017 to 2021. And then there was a sunset on that, and we had not dealt with that. And now these bills allow for municipal and co-ops. And I know you might want to speak to this, but Senator Outman was a strong advocate of making sure that there was an opt-out for those groups if they wanted to run their own programs. They don't have to necessarily go through this program. If they want to contain their own program, they can do that. And then the other piece that was really talked about is how do you ensure that the money stays in the area that it was raised in. What we don't want to do is, if there was money raised by a utility in the Upper Peninsula, that we're sending those dollars and resources down to, let's say, Lansing, for example. And so there is legislation in there that specifically protects that. So that was the package that was coming over from the Senate. What was added to this by us working with the chairwoman was making sure that those people that are going through this program are actually taking a look at accessing all the programs that are available to them. Currently, right now, we have really strong weatherization programs and other programs that people are accessible to. And what the chairwoman's program does is ensure that we are making sure that those individuals are getting the access to those programs at the same time. Because if we can weatherize somebody's house at the same time we're giving them assistance, we're going to bring down their overall costs as an individual. And so this really builds out and modernizes that program, and it ensures that those programs are linked to one another. I know you'll be hearing later on from the Public Service Commission. We've obviously been working with the Public Service Commission to ensure that this program can be held up to a standard, that those dollars stay in those local communities and in those regions. And so they'll be able to answer probably some more technical questions for you, but I know the three of us would be pleased to answer questions. But I want to make sure that if either one of you have any pieces you want to reiterate from your bosses, that you have the opportunity.
I'll take that opportunity. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, committee, for having us here to testify on these bills. Senator Outman wishes me to convey two main points, both addressed by Senator Singh, the opt-out being an important piece of this, as well as keeping the money in the geographical area that it's collected, making sure that distribution stays in those geographical areas. That's a big win for rural Michigan, in our office's opinion, and we're very proud of that work that we did. So other than that, good job.
And I would like to speak on behalf of Senator Kleinfeld. She wishes she could be here, but unfortunately she cannot. 353, Senate Bill 353, is her bill within the package. And overall, with layering this change into the energy reforms from last year will help our utility providers meet their goals to reduce energy consumption and, more importantly, break down barriers for access to the struggling families who need it most.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions from the members? Representative Hill.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and coming back. This is a very, very important program, and I'm really glad that we're having this opportunity to modernize it. My question, when we've fenced in the money for by geography, what if not enough money is raised in that location to meet the need? I'm very concerned that that could happen in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'd request that you ask that specific question to the Public Service Commission. I know they've been taking a look at wanting to address this. There's also other dollars I think that they're also taking a look at, wanting to be able to be looked at long-term. That could potentially go to help families that are also in need. And so I think that'll be a better question answered by the Public Service Commission staff.
Are there any more questions? Rep. Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not see in the piece of legislation how you were defining the geographical areas. And so who determines that? How is that determined? Is there a committee that makes a decision? Is it following like the Department of Transportation breakdown? Like, will counties stay together, be broken up depending on, that's, I guess, the answer I'm looking for. And why I ask that is because, like in my county in Macomb, we have city divided by agricultural, so there's a very different dynamic happening. So is it, who will determine the regions?
Yeah, so I think we're taking a look at sort of utility regions to some degree. But we also wanted to ensure, especially with co-ops and municipals that have, you know, their own geographic area, that they are contained in that geographic area. I'd have to, I know that was specifically within your legislation, if there's any specific
Yeah, I would
elements there.
direct you back to the MPSC. They'll have more information on that in their presentation, I believe.
Are they presenting after? Are they presenting?
Yes. Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions for this panel of people? Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Begal. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed in Bill 6075, it says that it requires MAPE to prioritize vulnerable populations. Can I get the definition of a vulnerable population?
Madam Chair, I don't know if your staff
We're looking
could-
for it right
could
now, that-
walk me through that. This is obviously a newer bill to the package.
1 second.
so-
1 moment. We'll give you that information.
Thank you.
It's been drawn to my attention, actually may be in Senate Bill 353,
Or we using-
line 21, paragraph K.
Right. Okay, exactly. So what it means is eligible low-income households that have at least one member that meets the following criteria: a child under 5 years of age, an individual that's disabled, an individual that's 60 years of age or older, an individual who has experienced homelessness in the preceding 12 months and who needs energy assistance to secure housing.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm sorry, Representative Preston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Why was the provision that protects consumers from shut-off from November 1st to April 15th eliminated?
Well, the MEAP program, when it was initially created, was a shut-off provision. So if a group wasn't connected to one of these MEAP programs, you know, you wouldn't be able to have that ability. Now, what we're doing is ensuring that everyone has access to this program, because now this program is statewide. You no longer have sort of an opt-out community. Prior to this, as you remember, I think it was also one of the concerns you had brought up in the previous time we had testimony. There was a lot of municipal programs as well as co-op programs were not part of this system. We are now having a statewide system that is included in all of this. So everyone will have access to those resources.
And just one follow-up question. Is there anything that really prevents co-ops, munis from combining resources and implementing a regional or a strategic program across multiple providers?
I think, again, when the commission will testify, I think there is collaborative opportunities for that. We also, you know, in the substitute allow, you know, to ensure that, you know, the third-party vendor, which often is going to be the person that would do this kind of piece that, you know, multiple co-ops would, you know, maybe contract with the same nonprofit to do the work in the end. So there would be no prohibition from them using the same nonprofit vendor.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually the implementation of the program from the provider side. So there's a lot that they have to adhere to as far as how this program is projected into the community. So, you know, like the co-op that I used to be on, far too small to implement this program alone. Sure. They'd have to leverage an economy of scale with another co-op or another co-op and a muni. Would the legislation permit that?
Again, this is what I would direct you to the commission on that. But my understanding is what the co-op or the individual would do, utility, was that they would set the parameters. They would, you know, put on their bill, you know, the factor. They would then collect that dollars, and then they would give those dollars to a nonprofit who then implements the actual distribution of those dollars. So the co-op or the muni would not be actually distributing those dollars. The nonprofit vendor, third-party vendor, would be doing that. They would be cataloging all of that. We did try to streamline the reports. I know that that was one of the concerns from the municipal utilities and the co-ops, that perhaps some of the reporting mechanisms that were under the old program back in 2017, 2018 were a little bit more onerous, that may be more appropriate for your larger utilities. And so I think there's been some streamlining of some of that reporting. The commission can talk to you specifically. I don't think there would be anything that would disallow them to doing more on the front end, but my sense is that really the bulk of the work that's being done, the dollars going out to individuals, making sure those individuals are eligible, making sure those individuals actually go through the training type of program, are all going to be done by the third-party vendor. And that's where I think you're going to see more of the collaboration. But I don't think there's anything in the legislation that would prohibit them from doing some of that stuff even earlier in the process. I just don't know how that would be practical, because they're all billing, I think, through separate entities. But if there is a way to make it better.
It's one line item on the bill.
Yeah, and if there's a way to do that, and if this legislation doesn't allow for that, I'm open to you know, trying to expand that. But I don't sense that, based off of the way I understand the program is going to be run, that there would be any barriers to that.
Thank you. Are there any more questions at all? No? All right. Well, we appreciate your testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Thank you. All right. We'll now have presentations from several stakeholders, beginning with Reba Holly-Volker, Manager of the Communications Section and Legislative Liaison at the Michigan Public Service Commission. Can you please come forward? Thank you. And you may begin whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Scott, Vice Chairs Andrews and Wenzel, members of the committee. I'm Rika Holly-Velker with the Michigan Public Service Commission, and as always, it is a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you this morning on behalf of the Public Service Commission. In April, I had the opportunity to share a bit about Michigan's energy assistance ecosystem. We discussed the various energy assistance programs, funding sources, their interactions, challenges, and opportunities for improvement, and we spent a lot of time looking at the Low-Income Energy Assistance Fund, or LIEF, which funds the Michigan Energy Assistance Program, or MEAP, and then we spent time looking at the MEAP program itself. The legislation before you today takes several steps, and significant steps, toward addressing many of the challenges we discussed in the spring, and puts in place the framework that will allow us to help more customers and do so in a way that is more efficient and better aligned with the goals of self-sufficiency and home energy security. Now, before I jump into my testimony today, I want to acknowledge the subs before you for Senate Bills 353, 880, and the new House Bill 6075. Taken together, the subs for 353, 880, Senate Bill 881 as it was passed by the Senate, and House Bill 6075 address the same issues as Senate Bill 353, 880, and 881 when they came over from the Senate, and the changes are primarily technical, clarifying, or help to improve implementation. Now, I want to start this morning with a really brief review of Michigan's energy assistance ecosystem, the LIEF and the MEAP, remind us of the challenges and opportunities we talked about in the spring, and then we'll talk about how the package before you addresses those challenges and opportunities. This diagram of Michigan's energy assistance ecosystem should look familiar. It lays out the different energy assistance programs, funding sources, and even where programs are tied together administratively. We're not going to go back through this slide today, but I wanted to orient us within the ecosystem, and today we are squarely within that orange rectangle dealing with LIHEAP and MEEP. Now, the Low Income Energy Assistance Fund was established in 2013 by Public Act 95 with strong bipartisan support to fund the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. The LIHEAP is an annual non-bypassable surcharge of up to $1 a month on each customer meter of participating electric utilities that is calculated to collect no more than $50 million. And to the extent possible, funds are expected to be returned to the area from which they were collected. It allows electric utilities to opt out of collecting the surcharge, but those utilities do not have the option to shut customers off for non-payment during the crisis season, or November 1 through April 15. And of course, this fund is exclusively used to fund the Michigan Energy Assistance Program, which was established in 2012, again with broad bipartisan support, and assists customers in every county across the state with any type of home heating need, from natural gas or electricity to deliverable fuels like propane, wood, and as we learned in April, even cherry pits. Now, MEEP assistance is available to customers at or below 150% of the federal poverty level and must include, as the Senator and Senate staff explained, have to include services that will enable participants to become or move toward becoming self-sufficient. This includes assisting participants in paying their energy bills on time, assisting them in budgeting for and contributing to their ability to pay their energy bills, and assisting participants in utilizing energy services to optimize on energy efficiency. Pursuant to boilerplate, the MPSC administers the program through an interagency agreement with DHHS. In April, we discussed some of the challenges that face the energy assistance ecosystem that have been identified by the Commission and others through our MEEP work groups, our Energy Affordability and Accessibility Collaborative, our Low-Income Energy Policy Board, and our Low-Income Energy Waste Reduction Work Group, which between them bring together tens of dozens and dozens of folks across the state who work in this space. Now, the first of these challenges is the system's orientation toward crisis. The crisis expenditure requirements in MEEP specifically, and the eligibility requirements that require a customer to be in crisis in order to receive assistance, orients what is supposed to be and is intended to be a self-sufficiency program toward crisis. This past summer, I had the opportunity to participate in a meeting with some of our MEEP grantees, and they shared how customers will come to them with a bill and they'll say, I'm not going to be able to pay this bill. And unfortunately, because they are not yet past due on their account, because that due date hasn't actually hit yet, those customers are not yet in crisis, so they don't qualify for help. This seems really contrary to the goal of self-sufficiency, as it ends up creating arrearages that need to be paid off by that customer, putting them further into the hole than they would be if they could get help on the front end. There's also a lack of effective coordination between programs that create unnecessary barriers for customers and administrative burden for frontline staff. There's no mechanism to prioritize or coordinate services for the customers who are most vulnerable and most at risk. There's also the lack of coordination between funding streams that create inefficiencies in the delivery of assistance and may not result in funds helping the most vulnerable. And of course, there is unmet need. We talked about two issues related to unmet need here. The first is a lack of funding. The need exceeds the available funding. This past fiscal year, there was a significant reduction in federal LIHEAP dollars which fund state emergency relief energy assistance. In fact, SER ran out in mid-June. This put a tremendous amount of pressure on the MEEP, which had to cover 3.5 months where there was no state emergency relief. The second issue is the eligibility threshold, where program eligibility is set at 150% of federal poverty, but we know there's need above that. So for a single person household, 150% of FPL is $22,590. Now, if this single person household makes $22,595, they aren't eligible for help, despite the fact that that extra $5 a year is not going to do enough to cover the bills they can't afford to meet. And if my coffee run this morning is any indication, that $5 isn't even going to get them a latte. The package before you this morning takes meaningful steps to address many of these challenges. Namely, they remove the statutory orientation towards crisis. They require actions that will improve programmatic coordination, and they help to address unmet need. Under current law, 70% of the program's funds must be spent during the crisis season. The crisis season limitation limits the funds that can be used for things like helping with budget plans, which promote self-sufficiency and require year-round support. We're also seeing a growing need for help year-round, not just during the existing crisis season, especially for senior citizens and families with babies and young children. With this change, we can take steps to help Michiganders better pursue self-sufficiency and achieve home energy security. Second, these bills take steps to better coordinate our energy assistance programs. For instance, the bills require the consideration of opportunities to incorporate categorical eligibility into eligibility verification guidelines and require that program participants be notified of other programs or services for which they are eligible, including energy waste reduction, products and services, and home weatherization programs. Now, this requirement aligns nicely with updates to Michigan's low-income energy waste reduction programs from the energy waste reduction legislation last year. This will help these folks, or help these low-income customers know what other programs are out there that can help reduce their energy bills, which could, for many of them, help them take additional steps towards self-sufficiency. Third, turning to unmet need, the bills before you increase funding and expand program eligibility. Looking first at expanding funding, this is done in a couple of ways. First, the LIHEAP surcharge cap is gradually increased to $2, with protections put in place to ensure that the program does not collect more than is needed. The second way funding is increased is through changes to the LIHEAP opt-out. Right now, any electric utility may choose to opt out of collecting the LIHEAP. And if they do opt out, they're prohibited from shutting off their customers during that crisis season for non-payment. However, their customers can still access MEAP dollars for assistance with their non-electric home heating bills during the crisis season and for help with their electric bills outside of the crisis season. For one MEAP grantee, more than 20% of their grant dollars have gone to assist customers of opt-out utilities with their non-electric home heat. To address this, the bill before you maintains the opt-out for utilities with less than 45,000 customers, but with some important changes. First, the customers of opt-out utilities will not qualify for MEAP assistance. Instead, as was discussed earlier, these opt-out utilities will be required to offer a program to their customers that will provide assistance with both their electric and home heating bills, and these programs have to have similar eligibility criteria to the MEAP program. And the program has to make funds available at a similar level to what the opt-out utility would have paid into the LIHEAP in that program year. For those smaller utilities that are concerned that the MEAP program takes a one-size-fits-all approach, or who are concerned that they would pay more into MEAP than their customer need would suggest in their service territory, this option provides flexibility while ensuring that these customers are taken care of and does so in a way that does not require the support of a fund that particular utility is not paying into, thereby saving LIHEAP funds for the customers of utilities who pay into it. And I want to take a moment here to address Representative Preston's questions. Regarding the shutoff, that shutoff prohibition for opt-out utilities is eliminated, but that was done at the request of those utilities. Part of the issue that you see is over the course of the crisis season when people can't be shut off, they're not paying their bills and they're not eligible for assistance. And so when you get to the end of that crisis season, they've accrued a significant amount of arrearages that need to be paid down, and that's typically going to be paid down by, for instance, the State Emergency Relief Fund, and they might have to contribute a sizable down payment to paying on that they probably don't have in a lot of situations. And so allowing or the removal of that shutoff prohibition is going to allow them to access assistance more quickly, which should bring down the total amount of assistance that they would need. So that's part of why that was done. As far as coordination, I think that when we look at the legislation, as far as if like Elder Delta wanted to work with maybe Escanaba on coordinating those programs, I don't see anything in the legislation that would prohibit that from an administrative perspective. I think we would still want to see separate reporting on how many of their customers individually received assistance for each of those utilities. That is my sense, but I don't see any, and I don't see anything in the legislation that would prohibit that administrative coordination. I also want to note just briefly the emphasis on returning funds to the area from which they are collected. This is kept and it's strengthened by the reporting requirements that are included in these bills. We will be able to better track on a county level where funds are being collected from, which we compare with existing data on where assistance is going. This legislation also requires reporting on the education, marketing, and outreach related to the availability of this assistance, which, when paired with other fund data, can help identify where additional outreach or education might be needed regarding program availability. Finally, the bills before you increase the eligibility threshold from 150% of federal poverty level to 60% of state median income. And I want to talk about what that means. So this green line on this chart here shows the 60% SMI income level. While any expansion in eligibility is going to help customers, the 60% SMI level creates the opportunity to simplify programmatic eligibility for customers and increase opportunities for things like categorical eligibility. While state assistance programs funded with LIHEAP currently use either 110% FPL or 150% FPL for state emergency relief, federally funded energy assistance programs have a maximum eligibility of 60% SMI. This increase in MEEP then not only expands eligibility for this state program, but gives maximum flexibility for coordination of other state energy assistance programs that are funded with federal dollars. And I also want to just flag here that income is not the only criteria for a household to qualify for MEEP. There will still have to be a showing of need, and the bills before you include a directive to prioritize vulnerable households, which, as we heard earlier from the chairwoman, means households that have babies or children under 5, those who are disabled, senior citizens, and folks who have experienced homelessness and need energy assistance in order to secure housing. These safeguards should ensure that assistance dollars are going to those households who truly need help. And while there may still be occurrences of someone just above the eligibility threshold who doesn't qualify, those situations should be significantly reduced. The bill package before you updates our approach to MEEP and will enable us all to better serve Michiganders, the utilities customers, and the shared constituents of everyone in this room. These bills continue to promote self-sufficiency while taking steps to better achieve that goal. The bills take steps to ensure customers have the information they need to understand the programs and services that may be available to them to help lower their bills, which for some may help to bring self-sufficiency within reach. They improve opportunities for program coordination and service delivery efficiency, and they enable better support of our most vulnerable residents by expanding both eligibility and funding while ensuring we prioritize those who are most in need. The MPSC is pleased to support these bills, and we appreciate the partnership of the bill sponsors and other supporters as we've worked not only over the last several months on this legislation, but over the last several years to identify opportunities to better serve vulnerable Michiganders. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all this morning. It really is great to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Thank you for that very important testimony. I really appreciate it. Representative Altman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Rika. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Just a couple of quick questions here. How much has this program continued to grow over the years, just in terms of applicants?
I would have to double check on that. I think on average we see somewhere between 50,000 and 59,000 households that are assisted through MEEP. I'd have to look to see the total number of applicants, but I'm happy to do that.
Okay, and I know you said this fund continues to run out of money. Do you expect this increase to be enough to cover these expanded eligibilities?
I think there will probably always be more need than we can reasonably fund.
Okay.
But I think this puts us in a much better position to help cover some of this. And I think it's important. So when we look at increasing eligibility, the total households that would likely be eligible for assistance, we would increase that number by about 350,000. That said, of the households that currently qualify for MEEP, only about 20% of them apply for and receive assistance.
Okay. Because I do think these programs are important. I'm just worried we're not getting to the root cause of, just high energy rates here in Michigan in general. How much have utility rates increased here in Michigan in recent years?
I would have to double check. I think it depends on the utility and the specific rate case. But rate cases always have to, or rates have to recover the costs that the utilities are incurring to serve their customers. So I'm happy to pull that information for you.
That would be great to know. Just as I was campaigning throughout the summer, going to door, that was one of the number one complaints was my utility rates going up, my auto insurance rates going up, but things like that. So it would be nice to have, some of that data in front of me. But I do thank you for your time and thank you for your presentation as well.
Thank you.
Representative McFall.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. You had mentioned about the $5 that put somebody directly out. Could you clarify? Maybe I misunderstood. Are we able to help those people that are right on the cusp as well, or is there a cutoff?
It is a cutoff. My first year working as a legislative liaison for the commission, I got a call from a legislative office. They had a senior citizen that was determined to have made, I think it was less than maybe $25 annually, too much. They were above the threshold for MEEP, so less than $2 a month. They didn't qualify for help. And I even looked at, I knew we were getting close to when the inflation adjustments would hit. Even after the inflation adjustments, they would still be making too much to qualify for help. And there's no mechanism there to assist someone that's maybe at 151% of FPL.
This is one of the things, my little soapbox, this is one of the things that really annoys me about a lot of our assistance programs. There's a lot of people that are right on the cusp. I mean, $25 over a year, like that is, I just wish we could come up with a better system, maybe some sort of step system or something. I don't know what it would be, but thank you for the clarification.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation. The question that I asked previously, which you didn't answer in your presentation, is that geographical outline, what that looks like, what that map looks like. How will we ensure that it's equitable across the board to the UP, to the thumb, to the city of Detroit?
Absolutely. So what we've done is we've included county level reporting. So I think one of the challenges when it comes to reporting or understanding where money is coming from and where it's going back to is we have overlaps in utility service territories. So you have some counties that are maybe served by 2, 3, or more when you get into the UP utilities. And so what I think we're looking at, what the legislation provides, is for reporting by county level. Now, I understand that doesn't necessarily get to concerns about, in Macomb County where you've got areas of higher population versus lower population. But to the extent that those customers are served by the same utility, and we will have utility data by how many meters they have in a specific county, we'll be able to get more to the root of that, but right now that data doesn't necessarily exist. So I'm hoping that as we're able to get better data, more granular data, we'll be able to narrow in on that.
Do you think that you would have a goal for that map and explain that map, I guess, in the future? Or what would be your timeline for that?
So the first time, should the legislation pass, the first time that we would be able to start with the new reporting requirements would be next year. So we'd probably be March of 26 before we'd have that first year's worth of data to understand where the money came from and where it went back to. And then with the reporting requirements on the education and outreach and all of that, we'd be able to start trying to address where maybe there was a disparity to improve awareness of the program itself or take additional action if necessary.
Thank you.
Representative Aragona.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Rika, good to see you again. Thanks for being here. I just wanted to ask you kind of a basic question. Can you help me understand a little bit the difference between LIHEAP and MEEP? You said that some of your customers, well, some of the customers throughout Michigan are using LIHEAP, some are using MEEP. Why would you use one over the other?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to this slide. So LIHEAP LIHEAP, is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program that's funded by the federal government, and that money is used to fund state emergency relief, the home heating credit, self-sufficiency services, and weatherization services. So that comes from the feds, and the way that the system is set up right now, in order to qualify for MEAP, which is funded by the LIHEAP, Low Income Energy Assistance Funds, those are state ratepayer dollars. The way it is set up right now is a customer has to get state emergency relief first, and then they go to MEAP. And so you have some customers that will get state emergency relief and not go to MEAP afterwards because maybe SER has taken care of their arrearage and that's all they're going to do. But to the extent that we're able to better coordinate and kind of push people into the MEAP program, we'll be able to do more with self-sufficiency, and we should be able to help bring down those instances of arrearages.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, you start with LIHEAP and then you move to MEAP if you need more.
Yes.
Okay. The LIHEAP funds come from the feds.
They do.
Got it. Okay. And has there been any indication whether those will go up, down, sideways in the future?
So fiscal 24, so during the COVID pandemic and the few years after that, we saw a pretty significant increase in LIHEAP dollars. Fiscal 24, we saw a reduction in how much we got from the feds, and I don't expect that we would see an increase from federal LIHEAP anytime in the near future. Mm-hmm.
All right. Representative Preston.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. There's a lot of good things in the MEAP program, and I'm a big fan of the MEAP program as it was written. With the opt-out, the complexity of the program is going to prevent small providers such as Elder Delta from implementing this program on their own. Is there definitive language that's going to allow them to co-op or strategically coordinate with other providers while still maintaining their opt-out threshold regarding the meters?
So I don't think that there is, so the way the opt-out is written is it's utilities under 45,000 customers are allowed to opt out as long as they have a program. I don't think there is anything in the legislation that would prevent these smaller co-ops from coordinating on the administrative side with another smaller utility, if that's what, or another opt-out utility if that's what they wanted to do.
You're not sure.
I don't see anything that prohibits it. And if that was something that we or needed to be made more clear, I think as Senator Singh indicated, I think there's absolutely room to have those conversations, and I'd be happy to chat with you about that.
And then another aspect, the cooperative that I used to be dealing with, they take in about $90,000 to $100,000 a year, and they disperse about 22 to 30. So we're a contributor to the program. The regionality, and making sure that those funds, stay within the region is an important aspect, and I think needs further definition. And then my last question is, without a defined path on what is and how long it is, what is self-sufficiency? How is it attained? How is it measured? What are the benchmarks?
So the legislation requires further definition of or directs DHHS to further define what self-sufficiency services are. But as the legislation stands now, and in statute, self-sufficiency are services that help people move toward being self-sufficient, move toward paying their energy bills and budgeting to pay those. As Senator Singh said, we know that there are some people for whom self-sufficiency isn't going to be something that they're going to achieve, right? Folks who have zero income for whatever reason. But for folks that can, this program provides tremendous supports to help them move in that direction. And the legislation does require further definition of what self-sufficiency services look like.
Thank you. Representative Hill.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My questions were also around self-sufficiency because the question of renters, I think, is also sort of a really key part of that, and that's whether you're rural or urban. Mm-hmm. You're in an old drafty house, your landlord's not making the improvements, and yet you're paying the heat. In those situations, and that's often to points that were raised earlier where people are then $25 over the line. They're living in a house that the landlord is not taking care of. How will these changes help them? Because I do think, I know folks have been talking about these kind of reforms for years, and so I think it's important that we get this over the line and do it in a way that's really going to help more people.
And I think your question, first of all, I do think, increasing the eligibility threshold will help those customers kind of in the immediate term with paying those bills. The longer term issue, of course, is the housing stock. And we have kind of this split incentive, right, between the landlord who owns the property and would probably need to pay for those upgrades and the renter who is paying those bills. And so figuring out how to address those split incentives is really important. And I know we have a lot of folks, even at the commission and our low-income energy waste reduction work group, that are trying to figure out how we can address those.
Thank you. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for testifying today. This program is needed. We have a lot of vulnerable customers that need assistance, especially moving into the winter months. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right. We'll now hear from Darlene Hudson, CEO of United Way of Southeastern Michigan, who is joining us via Zoom, and Alicia Roman, Chief Operating Officer at THAW. Thank you. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, and good morning, Chair Scott, Majority Vice Chair Andrews, Minority Vice Chair Wenzel, and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to see all of you again, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning about the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. My name is Dr. Darian Hudson, and I am proud president and CEO of the United Way for Southeastern Michigan. I also appreciate you all tolerating my voice. I'm so sorry. I have a cold. That's why I'm not there with you in person today. We are at the United Way, an impact-focused, community-based nonprofit that's working every day to help struggling households and families move from crisis to stability and from stability to prosperity. Our organization serves as one of the administrators for the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. And in this role, we help residents access financial support for utility bills while also using the opportunity to connect them with a range of other support services that are intended to help them reach financial independence. Our team sees firsthand how important this MEET program is, not just as a program administrator, but also from our Southeastern Michigan 211 call center, where utility assistance consistently ranks among the top 3 needs our community members are seeking help with. I'm here today to urge your support for the MEEP updates that are included in the bills before you, because they address the 2 most pressing needs that we see in the program. First, they will expand eligibility to better align with community need. And currently, the Michigan Energy Assistance Program is only available to those earning at or below the 150% of the federal poverty level. This excludes many families that are working but living below the ALICE survival threshold, which, according to the ALICE report, and ALICE is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Restrained, and Employed. This is published by the Michigan United Ways. It's the amount a household must earn to cover the basic no-frills cost of a monthly household budget. Our MEEP team members and community care advocates are taking calls every day from families who, due to unexpected costs like a vehicle repair or medical bill or loss of work hours, need some assistance to keep their lights or the heat on, only to learn that they earn just a few dollars too much to qualify. And this is happening too often. In our 211 service area in 2023 alone, utility payment assistance was not only the most requested service, but it was also the most unmet need, with nearly 1,000 households reaching out for support but not being eligible for the program. We serve about 7,000 families and households every year through our MEEP dollars. We offset the other 3,000 that we serve with dollars that we actually raise at United Way. These bills will allow us to help more local families by expanding the income threshold. Secondly, these bills will help generate the resources necessary to assist more families in their time of need. MEEP requires more funding to keep up with the level of need in communities across Michigan. This year, our call volume for utility assistance rivaled the numbers we were seeing during the height of the pandemic when we assisted the governor's COVID COVID-19 hotline. The unprecedented demand in our call centers, receiving upwards of 700 calls a day after day for weeks, forced us to shut down the call lines each afternoon to allow our team to process applications. The modest proposed increase of the meat surcharge will go a long way towards improving our ability to help struggling households through the state. And I want to reiterate, we are now at a point where we are receiving 700 calls a day on average again. And this is really important for us to be able to get these resources to our family in an efficient way. For these reasons, United Way for Southeastern Michigan is strongly encouraging your support for these proposed improvements to meat. I'm sure we all agree that no family should have to choose between whether they pay rent, put food on their table, or keep their heat on. And MEAP is an important tool we have to provide essential support in a household's time of need. All of us at United Way for Southeastern Michigan appreciate your continued work to ensure all the families in our state are able to meet their most basic needs. I thank you and appreciate this opportunity to share all of this information with you today and for your service and your leadership and your commitment to the betterment of our state. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions? No? All right. Thank you so much for your testimony. I appreciate it. You may now proceed.
Good morning. Make sure, perhaps scoot over a little bit. Thank you, Chairperson Scott and members of the committee. We recognize the importance of today's hearing, and we appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of Bills 353, 880, 881, and 6075. My name is Alicia Ramon, and I am the Chief Operating Officer at the Heat and Warmth Fund, commonly known to many throughout the state as THAW. THAW is the leading provider of utility payment assistance for Michigan residents in all 83 counties. Our mission is to empower and stabilize Michigan families, keeping them healthy, safe, and warm. Since 1985, we distributed over $230 million and helped over 320,000 low-income families throughout the state of Michigan address their critical needs by providing emergency, energy utility payment assistance, and self-sufficiency programs designed to meet the immediate and long-term needs of vulnerable households. As you've heard earlier today, living in a home without heat, electricity, or water can be dangerous, and unfortunately, thousands of working families, older Americans, individuals with disabilities, and children are faced with energy insecurity and disproportionately are impacted. This is even more devastating for households whose income is over the 150% FPL threshold. Earlier, someone testified and asked, what does that mean? That means even 5 cents over, an individual who has either been unemployed or for no fault of their own has received, fixing the car in order to get to work. Just one critical emergency need will prevent them from eligibility. And so, again, we see this day in and day out because for the 10,000 plus customers that we serve with the MEAP Energy Assistance Program dollars, there's about another $10,000 that we either have to look for alternate funding or provide additional resources where we are unable to assist them. And so we're hoping that your support today will help change the trajectory. Earlier, you had the question about self-sufficiency and energy efficiency programs. THAW is much more than just a utility payment assistance provider. We are able to work with the families for about 2 years. We look at an energy assessment, provide education, tools, resources, and even our minor plumbing and home repair programs, as well as our EEA programs, are designed to increase the efficiency of the homes that you heard of earlier today. Again, we know what the housing stock is, and we're committed to work across the table and across the state to ensure that we can have that our families have the ability to have a healthy and energy efficient home that will ultimately reduce consumption and ultimately give us that 2-year time period to work with the family to come to that greater self-sufficiency. Again, just given Michigan poverty rates, the need for our services continues to rise. And, again, we need your help to keep our families healthy, safe, and warm. No one should have to choose between feeding their families or keeping their homes warm and the lights on. Unfortunately, as you heard today, the current funding allocation is insufficient. This happened this year, and like Dr. Hudson mentioned, we received over 70,000 calls last year in our call center alone. The SER funding did deplete, and organizations and agencies, and we came together to serve the additional and unmet needs of families, throughout the state. So it is a real problem. We're seeing it day in and day out. Again, and disproportionately, it's impacted to the most vulnerable Michiganders. When we look at raising the eligibility requirements, and I heard earlier mention, well, if you raise the eligibility requirements, then, you're going to need more money. And that is true initially. But also know that while the grantees have an opportunity to work with the families, looking at consumption, looking at self-sufficiency and measures to help them, build to that greater self-sufficiency, then once they're completed the program, their energy burden has decreased. Most likely their self-sufficiency has increased, which would allow new families or new Michiganders into the program. So it will take a minute to get there, but the investment is critically needed. Again, expanding the and that's why expanding the allocations is also needed. They will, expand and allow us to slowly, gradually increase the funding to meet the greater need of all Michiganders. And again, I just want to thank you. Today, the goal here is to ensure that part of our vision, which is that all Michiganders have access to affordable utilities, energy-efficient homes, and viable job opportunities. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for that important testimony. Do we have any questions at all? No? Okay. Well, Ms. Roman, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have Angie Strainer from Energy Assistance Director at the Salvation Army and Marissa Bowerman, Empower Division Director, to speak together. Please come forward and begin when you are ready. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Chair Scott and committee members. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Angie Sterner, and I'm here today also as the chair of the Coalition to Keep Michigan Warm. So in 1987, the coalition began advocating for vulnerable Michiganders. Our members include partners that continue to advocate, network, and support to increase energy security for our most vulnerable households. Members include nonprofits, human services, energy efficiency providers and educators, consumer groups, utilities, and government. The coalition recognizes the ever-growing need for additional funding to ensure families have the resources available to them in times of crisis. Senate Bills 353, 880, 881, and House Bill 6075 allow for the much-needed increase in funding and eligibility for fixed income and working families that are barely unable to cover their basic needs and yet not able to qualify for assistance. The coalition supports the efforts to expand these services to vulnerable Michiganders that have been denied assistance due to either the lack of funding or just being barely over the current income requirements. As director of the Energy Assistance Services at the Salvation Army, we assist nearly 12,000 households with MEEP assistance every year. And we have witnessed the increased inquiries for assistance in the past few years especially. A family that would normally be okay and able to handle their own expenses, but they had an emergency vehicle repair or home repair or medical expense that came up. Or maybe a senior that's barely making it on a fixed income that's now impacted by the increased cost of everything from eggs to insurance. It makes it difficult for them to choose between their medicine costs, their property taxes, or a propane fill. For our agency and the many other MEAP agencies here today or in support of these bills, our MEAP funding has been exhausted earlier in every year, FY 22, 23, and 24, demonstrating that our communities desperately need our help. Thank you for your time today, your service, and your consideration of these matters that are before you today.
You may proceed. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Marissa Borman, and I'm the Director of Heat and Energy Assistance Programs at True North Community Services. We are a MEAP grantee that serves the entire state of Michigan, but we are located in the heart of rural Michigan in Newaygo County. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Coalition to Keep Michigan Warm. And I would like to echo my support for what all my fellow grantees have said today about this legislation. But today I'd just like to share a story of one household that we have served and the impact that this program had on that household. We have a single dad with 2 children, and the son is on the autism spectrum, and they live in rural Montcalm County. Dad has a full-time job, but his income was barely enough to help have the family squeak by each month. A significant car repair put strains on their budget, and the household's budget spiraled out of control. The household was facing heat and electric shutoff in March, and they were looking at an eviction and potential homelessness as there were no other options for their housing in their community. And all of the members of the household were dealing with mental health challenges, and Dad was simply overwhelmed with everything going on in his household. This household was referred to True North for assistance, and we offered our self-sufficiency services, and thankfully the dad recognized the need to make changes to help his family head in a better direction. The dad worked with one of our self-sufficiency advisors at True North. He created a budget, did some goal setting with an advisor, and really stuck to his budget. The household was also able to connect to other community resources, including autism support, mental health support for a daughter who had significant mental health challenges, being a sibling to someone who required special and significant assistance. The kids were also able to enroll in a school that better met their needs, and they were able to get their car repaired and ready so that Dad could continue to work. This family is now thriving. First, they are paying all of their bills on time with their budget in place. The son is connected to the services and the school that he needs with the community organization support. And Dad has the capacity to advocate for his son's special needs because they are not living in a crisis constant situation. The whole family has a stable home now that is really especially important for the son to have a space to regulate and relax to face the challenges of his special needs. The daughter is academically thriving and connected to the support that she needs in order to be the best sister to someone with special needs. Dad recently received an inheritance from the passing of a loved one and has connected with a financial advisor to wisely save this money for his family's future. He continues to work his job and plans his budget on his income because he knows that he can have a balanced budget and he wants to set his family up for the long term. They have a bright future because of the MEAP and having someone walk alongside them in their time of crisis. And all of this started with a utility assist. The assist is the door to long-term self-sufficiency, and MEAP is really an investment into the long-term success of the great people of Michigan who just simply need a little help. And the program really sets the households up to no longer need our assistance. This household represents the large majority of the people that we work with every single day. They are hardworking folks with difficult life situations that are completely out of their control.
They are wanting better for their lives, and they're very much looking for a hand up, not a handout. MEEP offers support to Michiganders who need it the most, and who are looking to not need assistance in the future. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, and thank you for your time, Chairwoman Scott and committee members.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Do we have any questions? No questions? All right, thank you. We appreciate it. I would like to call forward Sylvia Orjano, who is in support of the bill from the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization. Please come forward. Thank you for being here today. You're welcome.
Appreciate your leadership here. Pleased to be among your new constituents, too.
Thank you.
After terrific representation here with Representative McFall. So thank you for the time to be able to offer some comments here. I am Sylvia Orduno. I'm a longtime community organizer from Michigan Welfare Rights, on top of currently being director of the People's Water Board Coalition. I want to actually go back to when many changes happened back with welfare reform, back to 1996, and what were a lot of promises from the state of Michigan, how we were going to do it differently here. And in fact, Michigan was one of the states to come on pretty strong about changes that were going to take place in the way the benefits were distributed, but also ways in which there were going to be a number of ways that self-sufficiency programs help stand up families, resources were going to be available, jobs were going to be created to help families transition, child support, on and on and on. And lots of things, that good things that we heard, right? And the hope was that, okay, maybe we can do this. But today, a lot of that didn't really come through. We saw a lot of the challenges, even in the way in which Michigan was trying to stand up TANF programs. And as a result, what we have now are still a lot of families that are challenged with being able to pay their energy bills, their water bills, their housing, whether it's rent or mortgages and taxes and on and on. And so I want to also just ask you to take in consideration as you're doing this work, along with the water affordability work, right, that we continue to press on, is even the conversation around self-sufficiency is really eluding, because a lot of that emphasis is on something that we basically kind of believe households are doing wrong, or decisions they're making that are not the right choices, when we're not really looking at the other end of where those bills are coming from. We're not asking for the same sort of accountability and responsibility from the rate makers, right, the utilities themselves, and how it is that they're making decisions around what you're going to pay for, how those expenses are going to be allocated for what purposes. And so there hasn't been any pressure on them to do any control around the rate setting as well, or even how they're setting their rates. So I want to ask, I guess, for a little bit more grace as you're doing this work with what it is that households are really struggling to do. And I can tell you that I've been working on energy, in particular water, around 1996, 1997 for low-income households. No one who's ever had what we call a welfare case wants to be on welfare, doesn't want to be known that they're on public assistance. People want to pay their own bills and they want to be responsible and self-sufficient. But to keep suggesting that they're failing on and on, it doesn't help, again, in trying to really build the self-sufficiency case that's needed. I'm hoping that, again, you'll look at the full package of problems around this, right, and what we're doing to really make work possible for people in these same households. So that's one piece of it. I want to also really appreciate what you're doing to look at how to expand the eligibility definitions. That's been something that's been kind of stuck in many ways, and similar to the work with water affordability, some of the problems around where we draw the line, right, at that federal poverty level. And so I think the additional approach of allowing more people to be eligible is a good thing, recognizing, again, that people want to be able to pay their bills. People want to be self-sufficient. And I think just lastly, I would add that SER itself is not enough. So even the funding that's coming from the federal government to support LAHEAP, I know a lot of people that are regularly saying, because they come to us for help, not only with being able to fill out applications, to go through hearings with their workers in DHHS when they don't agree with the determination letter, or they're confused about the paperwork, or just how to do things online now through their telephone. You know the story. There's a lot of problems with even just the way that SER is set up, a lack of funding. And so while there's lots of good weatherization things that are also going to be made available here through expanded MEEP, there's still a need to deal with those household problems, the boiler, the radiators, the hot water heaters, right? And so Again, the relationship between energy and water matters in how we address the affordability problem for both aspects of those issues, but also how it is that SER funding is being provided. I believe there still needs to be more, and ways in which we make it so that we also get away from the definition of what a crisis season is. The November to May is not real anymore in Michigan. We're year-round. If you'll remember in the summers when we've had the fires coming down from Canada and people are told, close your windows, don't go outside, the air quality's awful, but it's hot. You've got to have your air conditioning on to breathe if you've got a number of problems. And so really hoping that as we look at the climate change issues and things that are happening in other parts that drift down to Michigan, that we really consider opening up eligibility year-round and not just think that we've got a seasonal issue here, because we're really talking about differences in how we work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that very important testimony. We appreciate you being here today. Okay, we are going to go at ease. Energy, Communications, and Technology Committee will now come back to order. I will be reading in cards in support of the package, neutral to the package is Harrisana Richards from MML. We have Winston Freehe from DTE, who is in support of the package. Raquel Richards from the Michigan League of Public Policy, that is in support of the package. We have Derek Darling in support of the package from Michigan Propane Gas Association. Mike O'Brien in support of the package from I&M Power Company. We have Ed Rivet in support of the package from Michigan Conservation Energy Forum. In support of the package, we have Hillary Kipp from Consumers Energy. In support of the package, we have Thomas Visco from Michigan Community Action. In support of the package, we have Thomas, okay, Visco from Oakland Livingston Human Services. In support of the package, we have Renee Wilson, who's the legislative director for Senator Kleinfeld, also a bill sponsor. We have Melissa Siebert in support of the package from AARP. And Louis Fitzer in support of the package from Wayne Metro Community Action Agency. Okay. One moment. Okay, we will now vote and to report out House Bill 6075 with recommendation. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Someone has to make the motion.
Representative Hill makes the motion
To report the bill.
to report the bill out. Thank you.
Chair Scott,
Yes.
Representatives Andrews,
Yes.
Witsit, Neely,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Churches,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
McFall,
Yes.
Hersberg,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Pass.
Outman,
Pass.
Aragona,
No.
Bagol,
Pass.
Green,
Pass.
Preston,
Pass.
Schmaltz.
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 9 yeas, 1 nay, and 6 passes. House Bill 6075 is reported with recommendation.
All right. We have a substitute H1. We need a report for Senate Bill 353. Representative Andrews moves the motion. Moves the sub.
Chair Scott,
Yes.
Representatives Andrews,
Yes.
Witsit, Neely,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Churches,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
McFall,
Yes.
Hersberg,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Yes.
Outman,
Yes.
Aragona,
Yes.
Bagol,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the substitute is adopted.
Thank you. We now will report out Senate Bill 353 as substitute H1 with recommendation. I make a motion for Representative Neely makes a motion to report Senate Bill 353 as substitute H1 with recommendation.
Chair Scott,
Yes.
Representatives Andrews,
Yes.
Witsit, Neely,
Yes.
does that pass?
Yes.
Oh, yes, okay, sorry. Burns,
Yes.
Churches,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
McFall,
Yes.
Hersberg,
Yes.
Wenzel,
Pass.
Outman,
Pass.
Aragona,
Pass.
Bagol,
Pass.
Green,
Yes.
Preston,
Pass.
Schmaltz.
Yes.
Is it yes?
Yes.
You have 11 yeas, 0 nays, and 5 passes. Senate Bill 353 is reported with her recommendation as substitute H1.
Thank you. Representative McFall moves to adopt substitute H1 for Senate Bill 880. Will you please call the vote?
Chair Scott,
Yes.
Representatives Andrews,
Yes.
Witsit, Neely,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
McFall?
Yes.
Hersberg?
Yes.
Wenzel?
Yes.
Outman?
Yes.
Aragona?
Yes.
McGold?
Yes.
Green?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Schmaltz?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the substitute is adopted.
Thank you. We will now report out Senate Bill 880 as a substitute H1 with recommendation. Representative Burns moves to report Senate Bill 880 as a substitute H1 with recommendation. Will you please call the roll?
Chair Scott?
Yes.
Representatives Andrews?
Yes.
Witsit? Neely?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
McFall?
Yes.
Hersberg?
Yes.
Wenzel?
Pass.
Outman?
Pass.
Aragona?
Pass.
McGold?
Pass.
Green?
Pass.
Preston?
Pass.
Schmaltz?
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 9 yeas, 0 nays, 7 passes. Senate Bill 880 is reported with recommendation as substitute H1.
Thank you. Next, we will vote to report Senate Bill 881 with recommendation. Rep. Churches makes a motion to report Senate Bill 881 with recommendation. Will you please call the roll?
Chair Scott?
Yes.
Representatives Andrews?
Yes.
Witsit? Neely?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
McFall?
Yes.
Hersberg?
Yes.
Wenzel?
Pass.
Outman?
Pass.
Aragona?
Pass.
McGold?
Pass.
Green?
Yes.
Preston?
Pass.
Schmaltz?
Pass.
Madam Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 6 passes. Senate Bill 881 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you. Representative Andrews moves to report Senate Bill 504 with recommendation. Will you please call the roll?
Chair Scott?
Yes.
Representatives Andrews?
Yes.
Witsit? Neely?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Churches?
Pass.
Hill?
Pass.
McDonald?
Pass.
McFall?
Yes.
Hersberg?
Yes.
It's not going to pass. They're all going to. Wenzel?
Yes.
Outman?
Yes.
Aragona?
Yes.
McGold?
Yes.
Green?
Madam Chair, will you please repeat the motion? I cannot hear you.
We're voting on reporting out Senate Bill 504.
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Schmaltz?
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 13 yeas, 0 nays, 3 passes. Senate Bill 504 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you. Representative Neely makes a motion to excuse absent members for that are absent today. With no further business being before the Energy and Communications and Technology Committee, we are adjourned.